Hey everybody, welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. We're at episode 16. Woot woot.
Yeah!
We decided to change it up today a little bit, and we're focusing on one and only movie.
Yes.
That we both had not seen yet, and we finally watched this weekend. It was something that we were both interested in seeing at some point, but we don't go to movie theaters anymore because they're gross. So, we finally got to watch it. It was on Paramount Plus. And I'm going to let Josh talk more about this because he read the book that it's based off of.
So the movie in question is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. It was released in 2023, but only just recently came to streaming, as Krista mentioned. It is specifically based on a chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula. As I'm sure many of you know, Dracula is an epistolary novel, meaning that the narrative is told in journal entries and articles and logbooks and things of that nature, as opposed to a straight narrative. The film is based on the chapter in which Dracula travels from Romania to England aboard a ship, the Demeter, and the movie actually just focuses in strictly on that portion of the Dracula story. It tells about the crew who is transporting Dracula and some other passengers, if you will, to England.
And I'm sure most of you have seen Bram Stoker's Dracula. There is a small scene in the movie where they do discuss some shit's gone awry on this ship.
Right.
And that's what this is. It's basically an expansion of that story.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this part of Dracula is always glossed over in films. You know, there's always just a little tidbit about him traveling and this ghost ship kind of running ashore in England. And so it's very interesting to me that they were able to just kind of focus on this one specific part of the story and really expand upon it in a way that I found entertaining.
There's going to be spoiler alerts in this.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But anyway, so one of the hidden passengers not only is, of course, Dracula, but is a woman from the town that is below his castle.
Right.
We come to find out that she has sacrificed herself to get this bastard away from everybody.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to, is like, please go. Yeah. Here's a chick.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Feast away.
Yeah.
But they find her and they don't know that she's sick, and one of the crew members happens to also be a doctor. And so he is giving her blood transfusion in the grossest way possible, by the way. And so basically, I mean, ultimately, he's feeding her.
Right.
And feeding Dracula the whole time.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I liked this movie a lot. I thought the performances were all very good. We got the gentleman that plays Clemens, who was also in Straight Outta Compton, was excellent in this movie, I thought. He did a really great job.
Yeah, he was also in The Black Klansman.
Yes.
Which is a great movie if you haven't seen it yet. Not horror, obviously, but a great movie. I did not like this movie. Both Josh and I decided that when we finished watching this movie, we weren't going to talk about it till now.
Right.
So now we're actually discuing why we don't like this movie.
Right. Well, I liked it.
Well, yeah, why I
liked
didn't like it.
Didn't.
Yeah. So I kind of hinted at it last night that there was a turning point. There's usually a turning point when I watch movies where I'm like, ugh, and I have lost all interest because of something stupid that has happened in this movie.
Right.
This one, in my opinion, was the crap CGI.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It wasn't good. It was the opposite of good. And it really just threw me off. Because there was actually a man in a suit.
Right.
So why they went so full CGI, I didn't understand, because for the scenes that you see him, I didn't find it necessary.
Right.
You could have gone practical and it would have been scarier, in my opinion.
I agree. I will agree with that. I was not a fan of all the CGI. I thought like the idea for the way Dracula looked in this was a cool idea, because it was kind of like a combination of his, like in Bram Stoker's Dracula, kind of his bat form, and then kind of a little bit Nosferatu as well.
Absolutely. The Nosferatu, that's what I saw too, was that his face, because he didn't have specific fangs.
Yeah,
in this.
exactly.
He had the full choppers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's much more realistic if you're going to say that, you know, Dracula was a realistic person in this sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also thought that was cool that they borrowed from both of them, and it made it much more real as far as that type of character. You never once saw a handsome, amazing, hot Dracula at any point like you do in Bram Stoker's Dracula. So,
and also I liked that, and this was kind of why I didn't care for the CGI so much, is I felt like the rest of the movie was pretty gritty as far as, for a big budget, by big budget movie standards, as far as showing what life on a ship was like, you know, and how gross and disgusting it really was.
Yeah.
You know, so I appreciated all that, but I wish Dracula had been equally as gritty and, you know, they could have done practical. They could have gone practical and done really well with it.
Yeah.
That was probably the only part of the movie I didn't like. It wasn't enough to turn me off of the movie, put it that way.
Yeah. Another part of this is that I don't like movies with boats. It's never been a thing for me. I've never liked the ocean stuff and whatever. And part of that draws from the fact that if you've ever seen the movie Amistad or have learned our history, and how people were brought over to the United States, it's pretty wretched. And it just bothers me so much, because that's what I think of now. If you've ever watched Amistad, it's an amazing movie. Very hard to watch, though.
Right.
And so that's what I picture when I look at these ships.
Right.
I think that's what it is. Plus, I get motion sickness.
Right.
So I have no interest in ever being on one of these boats in my life.
Sure.
And then call me lazy, but the moving of the sails.
Oh yeah.
And how they're always up there on the, what are they called, bows or whatever?
The mast.
Yeah. Okay, some shit. It's like so much work, and then the water's always hitting them in the face, and I'm just like, there's nothing comforting about this in any way. So I just don't like these types of movies in that sense. Now, obviously, I knew that's what this movie was.
Right.
That would be dumb if I didn't. But still, even so, I have to put that behind me and try not to think about it. But it does bug me.
Right. No, I understand that. And see, me, I'm the opposite. Like, I have a huge fascination with the sea. You know, my favorite novel is Moby Dick. You'd think I would know the parts of the boat, the parts of the ships, I should say, having read Moby Dick so many times. But
yeah.
I'm super bad at retaining stuff like that. Like, for me, it's all about the story, you know, not so much the technical aspects of the ship, you know. So even though he does talk about those things in Moby Dick. But yeah, I've always had a fascination with the sea and things like that. So this movie was really interesting for me. Just because, again, it's another depiction of sailing during that time frame, which I think is really cool. I mean, I would never want to do that personally, but I think it's cool to read and learn about it and things like that, and read stories about it. What was interesting to me about this movie, especially, was kind of how it was sort of like, I drew a lot of parallels between this movie and Alien.
That's interesting.
They're very similar to me in that, you know, well, in Alien, obviously, they land on this planet with a distress signal to answer a distress signal, and end up bringing this creature on board that they don't really know what it is. Well, here the crew of the Demeter is bringing this cargo on board that they don't really know what it is, and then they're trapped on board with this thing, which is very similar to Alien to me.
It is.
And very similar claustrophobia, you know, because there's really nowhere for them to go. Even when the cook tries to escape in the lifeboat, that's when they find out, hey, guess what? Dracula can fly.
Yeah.
and the
cook was an asshole.
Yeah, the cook was an asshole anyway, and I was fine with him dying. But, so a lot of parallels between this movie and Alien, which I found really interesting. You know, obviously that kind of storyline has been used many times over the years, but it was interesting to see it brought on this kind of, maritime type story to me, and put Dracula in the mix. I thought it was interesting that Dracula is so savage in this movie.
Yeah.
as opposed to a lot of these others where he's so suave and everything. And this, as you said, he's pretty gross in this one. And I liked how they didn't flinch away from him killing the kid, to be honest, or the dog, or slaughtering the animals. I was very surprised to see that in a big budget American movie. That
was very shocking.
You don't expect that at all.
No.
And I was pretty shocked by that in a good way. Shocking and yet also refreshing to see that they didn't shy away from that savagery.
Well, and it wasn't an American director either.
Right. It's Andre Ovredal who directed Troll Hunter and also
Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Autopsy of Jane Doe, yes, that's right.
I think that there was a lot of good gore in it, for sure. I was shocked at that.
Yeah.
And that was all practical.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. It was probably the chompiest, goriest. There was no clean, just little.
Yeah, exactly.
There was nothing like that because he had those big chompers.
Yep, exactly.
He had some Osmond chompers on that. He was a little bit of country and rock and roll.
He totally was.
So yeah, I appreciated all the gore in it. I'm not a big fan of, animals or children dying, obviously.
Right.
But it does make it a little bit more harder to watch.
Yeah.
And I think that brings out the emotion in you and really wants to make sure that you kill Batman.
Yeah, I mean, that's what for the record, I guess I should say, it's not like I'm a fan of children and animals getting slaughtered, but I thought it really added to the savagery and the visceralness of the movie, which made it more impactful. Put it that I should have said that. Like,
preface
yes, some kids get killed.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't like that.
I think another downside to this movie, there was a lot of emotional crap, not just the kid thing. That definitely had a lot of emotion attached to it.
Yeah.
And I don't anticipate someone be like, all right, well, we got to move on. You know, I don't anticipate that by any means, but it just seemed really just dragging on that subject. And then, towards the end when they had their little Titanic floating on a piece of wood moment.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I was just like, oh, God, I don't care. I just don't care. I just want to move on and, catch the bastard.
Right.
And, so that was like, that's where the slow moving stuff came to me, and when I started checking my email. And I really tried to pay attention, but here's something I don't know if you caught on to. I was pretty impressed when my brain came to this one. So do you remember at the beginning they needed to hire a couple crew members?
Right.
And the old man that was half blind came forward and he was like, oh, I can do it. And they all laughed at him.
Yeah.
He still got picked.
Yeah.
And then once he got on the ship, or he was getting close to being on the ship, and he saw one of the boxes had the dragon symbol on it. And he was just like, nope.
Just kidding.
Well, if you ever notice that one blind eye looks just like what all their eyes turn to.
Oh, you're right.
When they become vampires as well.
Yeah.
And so it makes you wonder, he must have experienced something with that man at some point and is avoiding him like the plague.
Right, exactly.
So I thought that was
is
really
interesting. I didn't think about that.
And I was very happy. I'm big into movie makeup. And I was very happy that those are the caps that they used on their eyes. The dead eyes. Yeah. They didn't turn red.
Well, yeah, and that's a good call too. Like, they didn't make becoming a vampire into this great romantic thing. It was awful.
It was. It was an
really
awful
and horrific.
It was how you would anticipate it actually being.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no sexy time in a garden.
No.
There was no, none of that stuff. And so I appreciated that as well. That it was just like, just get to the dirt. That's what I want, literally and figuratively, the dirt of that ship. But I did think it was good. It was very graphic.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised it didn't get more praise.
Yeah.
Elsewhere. And I can never remember the guy's name. Sorry. The guy that plays Polka Dot Man.
Oh, David Dastmalchian, yeah.
Yeah. He did a good job, but I really wanted to punch him in the face.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like a lot.
He was super intense, as he normally is in most things.
But it was that facial hair, and he's an attractive man, so with the facial hair, I'm just like, I also, I think about dumb crap when I'm watching these movies. how bad they must smell.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
And you're right next to water.
Yeah.
You could just...
But it's salt water.
I
so,
know,
I
but...
mean,
I know.
and you're going to smell like the sea. I don't know if that's any better.
They probably do anyway. Sea and sweat.
And sea and sweat.
Maybe that's where
Sea
Old
and
Spice
sweat.
comes from.
Maybe. Could be.
I mean, they have the pirate boat
That's
on
right.
there. On there.
Old Spice, Old Bay.
Yeah.
You know?
Old sweaty pirates. Love me old sweaty pirates. So, I didn't totally hate it.
Right.
I think if there was if we were to do a scale, maybe we should start doing scales.
A scale, yeah.
I would say this was probably like a 3.5 for me.
Okay. I would give it a 4. You know, I deduct 1 point for the CGI because I'm never a fan of CGI. There's only like a handful of movies where I've ever found it to look good and convincing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I liked it a lot. You know, like I said, all the performances I thought were really good. I liked that they kind of had like a little bit of the captain's log narrative scattered throughout it to kind of harken back to the novel, you know, things like that. So there were a lot of things I really, really, really liked about it. But yeah, I definitely think the CGI brings it down a point for me. Otherwise, I liked it. I liked the slow burn. I thought it had great atmosphere. Probably not something I'd want to watch all the time, you know. It's not Dune.
How many times do you think now? At least 10.
At least 10 for sure. Yeah.
For Dune.
Definitely. Also with David Dasmalkian in it.
That's true.
So, you know.
That's true.
Although I wish he was in that movie more than what he is, but
it's just so hot. It's a hot movie.
Hot movie. Check it and see. We've got sandworms more than 3.
Yeah. It's a horrible song. That is really bad. That's really
You
bad.
liked it.
Yeah.
Just admit it. You liked it a lot.
There's a lot of these gems that float around this house.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all in all, I mean, I'm still gonna like the original Dracula.
Well, Bram Stoker's Dracula is amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that there's so many different takes on Dracula. You know, this one obviously being really gross, whereas in Bram Stoker's, he's a bit of both. You know, so it's just kind of cool, and that's one of the cool things about Dracula being public domain. If you guys don't know, there is no copyright on the character of Dracula. It fell out of copyright years and years ago. So anybody can write a story about Dracula if they want. And that's why you see Dracula in everything from Marvel Comics all the way to, you know, Bram Stoker's and now this, you know, it's just because anybody can use that character in whatever way they want, for better or worse. Most of the time for the worse. But there are some really cool takes on Dracula out there, and I definitely think this was one of them. I think some people aren't going to like the fact that Dracula doesn't have any real character development in this one. He's more of just a monster in this, but I kind of like that he was just this savage creature, you know, stalking the ship.
The other times where Dracula has been in a movie, it's all him.
Right.
He's the whole enchilada for every single scene.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, you know, but you want more backstory. And I think that was what was good about Bram Stoker's, is because they still went in to the other journals from Lucy and everybody, you know. And so you got to see multiple parts to this.
Right.
And not just, oh, I got to the castle.
Yeah.
And he's hot.
Yeah.
And, oh, woe is me. He's going to suck my neck.
Yeah.
You know, just, yeah. That's why I've never watched any of the older ones, you know, like from the 60s or whatever, because I go, no.
They're fun. Those movies are fun. They're slow.
Very slow,
but Christopher Lee is great in those movies.
He's so made up. He's got so much makeup on.
Well, yeah.
And the colorization that they use.
The colorization's really weird in those movies, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, all the women had doe eyes.
Yeah.
And some sort of pomp on the top. You know, no matter when this was filmed or when this is supposed to take place, they always still look. They all had blue eyeshadow.
Right.
It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I do still recommend seeing this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because it is so different from everything else that's out there. Go see other things aside from Hereditary. And what is it? Terrifier.
Terrifier.
I can never remember that. I have no interest
Clowns
in that.
aren't scary, guys. Sorry.
Clowns
Not sorry.
Scary. Yeah. There's just so much more out there. You just have to explore and find it.
Yeah, this was a big movie, so I mean...
It was. It had a big budget, big peoples.
I just don't know how much of a market these days there is for like a horror period piece, you know, and that's basically what this was.
But thankfully, it wasn't in that type of speech.
Right there, yeah.
It really helps because I have never read the book. I just never cared about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was reviewing, it is chapter 7 in the book. If you want to just go and look it up.
Yeah, I probably should have said that earlier.
Yeah, it's all right. You know, but I was just kind of breezing over it. And granted, I've had a migraine for 2 weeks, so breezing over the Dracula was not really in the cards for me.
Right.
But either way, I was just like, oh my, shut up. You know, so I was grateful that, because I think I would have lost interest even faster watching this movie.
Right.
If it was written in a different form and not more, I mean, it was still obviously somewhat period.
Yes.
But not crazy.
Right. Absolutely.
It also wasn't Hamilton either. Nobody was rapping through it.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle, I love rap music, but I don't know if I could handle rap Dracula.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
That would be
I don't know if
pretty
I
funny.
can handle rap Dracula.
That would be pretty good. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it about it. It was a good movie though. I mean, I recommend it to other people.
Yes.
We recommended it to our friends who don't like horror as much as us. But if you know, because Dracula is such a familiar story, I think more people are on board with it in that sense.
Yes.
That it's like, oh, let's see what another take us on this. And this is so different.
Yeah.
That I don't find it to where you're going to be bored with it.
Right, yeah. I think the only sticking points for some people is going to be the CGI, as it was for us. And then the slow burn of the story might for some people, you know. Because nowadays we're so used to just being hit with all this, you know, all these special effects and all this action and everything.
Constant.
And this movie is definitely not that. So
yeah, we have a shorter attention span these days, so things have to come to us fast.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of backstories get thrown into movies now too.
Right.
Because you've got to fill the space.
Right.
You don't though. You really don't.
Yeah.
And that's what they did do well with introducing when he was in his scenes, when he would come out. It wasn't like he was just there and be like, hey, I'm going to sit here and eat a burrito and hang out for a while.
Right.
It was, you know, he was there and gone.
Yep, exactly.
There was only a couple times you got to see him slightly longer than others.
Yep.
And that's where we could get the comparison for Nosferatu.
Yep.
And the other Dracula.
Yep.
But I think they did well.
Yes, absolutely.
I wish it had done better.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I wish there was more practical.
Yes, absolutely.
I really don't see why they couldn't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For what they did show. I am like...
Yeah, it definitely could have been practical for sure.
Yeah, because, I mean, it started off with him just flying out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, put some damn ropes on the man and just fly him out. One of those, you know... Tie him up to the big stick thing with the flags on it. He could just go, whee!
Flags. Still with the flags. They're sails, Krista.
Another flag
For the love of God.
on sticks. And they go like that. And I don't want any part of them. No. I'll go on the boat at Disneyland. That's it, though. The Columbia or whatever it is. I'll go on that.
Hopefully Dracula's not lurking on that.
I hope
night,
not.
You know.
He's hanging out with Walt.
Yeah, he could be.
In their cryogenic chambers.
Yes. There's Walt's chamber with he's preserved in, and there's Dracula's coffin next to it.
Just a box, you know.
Walt's chamber has Earth from Disneyland in inside.
Yeah. You know, here, maybe... that would be weird. What was the dragon significance?
That was Dracula's symbol in real life. Actually.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
See, that's how much I don't know about it. So, and I mean, because I never read the book, and I've never just been totally engulfed in all things Dracula. It's never been a big thing. I did have to get clarification on who he actually was. Right. I know that he was Vlad the Impaler,
right,
and that he impaled people in war and whatever. But Josh was discussing how much of a dick he was.
Well, I don't. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I don't know some of these things that I remember. Like, it's been a long time since I was had all this fascination and researched all these things. But one of the stories I remember reading or seeing in a documentary or something that they talked about was about him, someone visiting him and wearing a hat, and he wouldn't, and this particular person would not remove his hat in Dracula's presence, so he had the guy's hat nailed to his head, things of that. He was, I don't know if that's true or not, or
he still sounds like a dick.
what the record of that was, but I think he was a pretty vicious dude.
Yeah, apparently so. Apparently so. Anyway, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of it. We're
Absolutely.
very curious.
Yes.
Thank you for continuing to subscribe and pay attention to our content.
Yes.
Please continue to share it with your friends and family and everybody. It doesn't hurt to share.
Right.
Sharing is caring.
That's right.
And, continue to love us.
Yes.
Just as we are.
Yes.
Oh. Anyway, we'll
All
see you
right.
next
Thanks,
week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.